Good morning, everyone. We'll get started with today's class.
Good morning, sir.
Morning, guys. So in the previous class, we were looking at telescopic cascode OTAs. We saw how telescopic cascodes can provide us with higher gain, much higher gain, at the expense, of course, of bandwidth. But not only that, we also saw that there are some very severe restrictions on the input and output swing limits, right? Or the input common mode range as well as the output swing limits or the output common mode range. We looked at bandwidth, we looked at the non-dominant poles that are there in the circuit. We also looked at the voltage swing limits and so on. So today we'll just continue. So in yesterday's class, we looked at a fully differential telescopic OTA, right? So in today's class, of course, we need to look at what is called as the single-ended telescopic OTA. Now, what was the difference between a fully differential 5-transistor OTA and the single-ended 5-transistor OTA?
We have 0 in the frequency response.
Yeah, correct. 0 in this frequency response. So I'm asking in terms of the circuit structure.
A diode connected PMOS for single-ended OTA.
Correct. So what happened was you had your basic differential pair, but the current source load was replaced with a current mirror load. Okay. So that is very similar to what we will be doing in the case of a telescopic op amp also. So let's say this is M0, this is M1 and M2. Let's say this is V in plus and V in minus, and this is cascoded, right? So now, instead of having a current source load, which is what we had in the fully differential case, which we saw yesterday, we are going to have a current mirror load. Okay? A very simple current mirror load is basically going to look like something like this. Now, because we are talking about cascodes, we need to have a cascode current mirror. And this becomes your output. All right. Now we know how to design cascode current mirrors. What I have drawn here is a very straightforward cascode current mirror. What is the disadvantage of this cascode current mirror?
Signal swing is low.
Signal swing is limited, correct? Because you want to have, because according to this particular thing, this is going to fix your thing to be VSG, and then you need to have a VSD sat here, and therefore your Vout max here, right? Or rather, let me write it here. So Vout max is VSG plus VSD sat, correct? Or sorry, VDD minus VDD minus VSG minus VSD sat. Now this is basically when we talked about current mirrors, we looked at current mirrors primarily as NMOS current mirrors, and I also mentioned that the same can be done with PMOS transistors as well. In this example, we are looking at a PMOS current mirror, right? And in this case, what is happening is that the minimum voltage that is required, or in the case of NMOS current mirrors, we looked at the minimum voltage. Here we are talking about the maximum voltage because we are talking about PMOS current mirror, right? And that is given by this factor. So if you kind of write it in the more classical, the classical way, it becomes VDD minus, you have an overdrive voltage minus the threshold voltage minus another overdrive voltage, right? Now this threshold voltage is the culprit basically because it's a large value. So if you kind of substitute some values, let's say this is 1.8 volt, let's say you put 0.2, this is 0.4, this is 0.2, right? And therefore, what is the maximum voltage that you have? You have only maximum voltage of Vout max that can go is only 1 volt, Now you can also think about what will happen to the bottom side. So which is why this is not used for technology nodes like 180 nanometer. Probably you can kind of get away with it with the 3.3 volt supply or a 5 volt supply, but definitely not for smaller voltages. So what can be done if I want to increase my voltage swing limits? Right. So let me just say voltage swing is limited. Let's
Low
say
voltage
I
cascode.
want to improve my voltage. Yeah. What was it?
Low voltage cascodes.
Low voltage cascode. So how can you design a low voltage cascode? Let me first draw the bottom section.
So for this, the bottom section will have the same thing, right? Like limit will not change.
Bottom limit will not change.
Yes.
Basically, the based on what we did, V out min will be VB1. Let's say this is VB1. VB1 minus VTH would be the V out min. Right.
Yes, sir.
So how will your top transistor look like? Top section. Obviously, where to have two PMOSes, right? How will you connect these two PMOSes?
The gate of the second PMOS will be connected to the source.
Basically, if you look at yeah, so you'll have something like this. Right? And these two things will be connected to some VB2. Correct. So you choose VB2 such that you allow only roughly around VSD sat here, right? Or rather you choose you choose VB2 such that this voltage is nothing but VB2 minus VSG of, let's say, 6 or 8, 6 and 7, right? So this is M1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this will be 5, 6. So the voltage at this point is, the voltage at this particular point is going to be VB2 plus VSG of 5, 6, right? Therefore, you can choose your VB2 such that you get a little higher V out max. And this, of course, becomes your V out. Okay. Now, how to generate VB2, we have already seen, right? We have seen multiple ways by which you can generate VB2. And you can use any of the low voltage cascode techniques to generate this bias voltage VB2. Same way, how will you bias VB1? So let's say this is VB1, VB2. So before we go into the biasing aspects, let us try to understand how is this going to work as a cascode, telescopic cascode. So let us say I am giving a plus delta V here and a minus delta V here. So what will be the current drawn here?
GM plus delta. I till by 2 plus GM.
Correct. So this will be basically I tail divided by 2 plus GM delta V. Same way, what will be the current that is drawn in this side? It will be I tail divided by 2 minus GM delta V. Correct. Now, what is the action of this current mirror? Irrespective of which type of current mirror you use, the job of the current mirror is to copy the current from one side to the other side. So what will be the current that is flowing this side?
I till by 2 plus GM delta V.
It will be I tail by 2 plus GM delta V, because basically it is going to copy the current on the left hand side to the current on the right hand side. So let us say you put a large capacitor so that it's open at DC and a short at AC. So you find out the effective total I out. What will be the total I out here? You do KCL at this node. You have incoming current, you have two outgoing currents, and therefore you'll have 2 times GM delta V, right? And therefore your effective transconductance turns out to be GM of 1,2. Right? Because your input differential signal is 2 times delta V, and therefore it gives you the input this thing. So output impedance, whatever we have seen. So the rest of the story is all the same as what we saw yesterday. The input common mode range, the output common mode range, the output swing limits, all these things are pretty much similar. All right. Now, there is one important thing that we do. Let us say you take this op amp and you put it in unity gain feedback. Okay. Right. If you take this op amp and you put it in, let us say, unity gain feedback, what will happen? So, I mean, it will work. Let's say you can also have some capacitance CL here. All right. But let me just. Right. So let's say you have your output like this, right? This is your plus terminal, this is your V out terminal, this is your minus terminal. What happens when you do unity gain feedback? You're going to connect something like this. Let's say you have some load capacitance at the output, right? Now, if you do this, what is the range of voltages for which this can work? Right? In general, when you look at a generic, op amp that you, let's say, use in your lab or things like that, you do a unity gain op amp and it kind of works almost rail to rail, right? Almost. But here in this topology of an telescopic cascode OTA, what is the range over which this, unity gain op amp can work?
If the V out is in like V in range, then only it will.
Exactly, right? So basically, what is the V out min? So let's try to look at what is V out min. V out min has to be like how we saw in yesterday's class. Basically, it has to be VB greater than VT. V out min is basically VB minus VTH, right? And what is our V out max? Basically, in this case, M2 has to be in saturation. So because now whatever is the V out is now connected to the input, right? So in this case, we have to see what is the requirement for M2 to be in saturation. So for example, how do you find out V out min? Basically, you say that, what is the minimum V out that is required? Basically you talk about the minimum V out that has to be there, right? So that becomes your V out min, like how we saw yesterday. For V out max, if you keep increasing V out, this gate voltage keeps increasing, right? And there is a possibility that this transistor can very well go out of saturation. So if for M2 to be in saturation, your VDS has to be greater than VGS of your M2. So what is the VDS of M2? It is VB minus VGS4. This is your VDS of 2 should be greater than or equal VGS of 2, right? What is VGS of 2? Let us say, so VB minus VGS4 minus, let's say, VP. has to be greater than or equal to V out max minus VP minus VTH. So VP of course gets cancelled out, and therefore V out max turns out to be VB minus VGS4 plus VTH. Okay. So now you see, let us just substitute some numbers here so that we
Sir?
get a feel of what it is. Yeah.
Sir, where is this VB?
VP. Okay, so sorry. This is VB1. Let me just mark it as VB1.
Okay.
All right.
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, we know that like to transistor 1 and 2, ITEL by 2 current flows. So
Yeah.
shouldn't V out be fixed?
Why will it be fixed? Because you're changing the input voltage here, no? Let's say you're giving a sinusoid here.
Sir, the V out is a DC voltage, right?
We are talking about the swing actually here. See, this V out, when you give a sinusoid here, this will also swing, no? Across a certain V out common mode.
Okay, sir. Fine.
So kind of
Also-
what we did was we looked at the output common mode voltage range, and we also said that also is turned to be the range of your output voltage swing, right? So kind of, for example, let us say this is your V out max. I mean, you can have your common mode voltage at this point also and still have everything in saturation. Only thing, the swing limits now become very poor, right? Your voltage can swing between these two limits, and you can put your common mode anywhere you want. But if you put, let's say, your common mode here, you get a swing of only this much. Got it?
And also V out max, it will be determined by two things, right? That 6 and 8 should also be in saturation.
Yes, but what happens is, I think M2 will first go out of saturation before, M6 goes out of saturation.
Okay, sir.
Okay, because the VDS here, like it already goes through, this VDS4, right? So basically what you will do is you will put your VP1 such that, you have a good room, swing room. Now, because of that, this voltage is already crunched. So this will go out of saturation even before the other one. So if you take VB to be 1 volt, threshold voltage to be 0.4 volt, right? Let's say the VGS is, let's say 0.45 volt or 0.5 volt or something like that. Okay, let us say it is 0.5, right? At least 100 millivolt overdrive. Now what will you get? So this will typically be something like VB1 is 1 minus 0.4, 0.6 volt. And what does V out max? This is 1 minus 0.5 plus, sorry, 0.4. So this is 0.9. So basically between 0.6 volt and 0.9 volt only this will work. If you want little higher thing, you need to increase your VB1, but then again it starts affecting the other things. So this telescopic cascode is a, yeah.
So this VGS1 is for M2, right?
Okay, I'm just giving some very rough calculation. So for this rough calculation, let's say all the VGSs are the same. Okay.
Okay, sir.
That's kind of the assumption here. I'm not doing a very exact calculation. I'm just kind of throwing some numbers to get a feel of how the numbers are going to look like. Okay.
Sir, and this, what is VP, sir? VP in the third
This
line.
One.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Right. So the conclusion of whatever exercise we did now is to say that telescopic cascodes have very limited voltage range in which they can be operated as unity gain or in unity gain feedback. Right? So telescopic cascodes have extremely narrow range of voltages over which they can work. Okay. Now let us also look at the noise performance of this particular thing. Now we have already looked at the noise performance of different stages, right? The individual, single stage amplifiers, right? The single-ended amplifiers. So can you look at this thing, apply those concepts and tell me which are the transistors that will contribute to the final noise performance and which of them will not contribute? If you recall, whatever is operating as common source will contribute to noise. Common gate, the noise basically circulates within itself. Same thing in the case of cascodes, the transconductance, the input transistor contributes to noise, whereas the cascoding transistor does not contribute to noise. So now you tell me, for a telescopic cascode, either as a fully differential one or this, a single-ended output version, which transistors will contribute to noise and which of them the noise will just circulate in itself?
3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay, 3, 4, 5, 6, what will happen?
Noise will contribute.
Noise will contribute?
No, sir, reverse.
It's the other way around, right? So if you look at this particular circuit, right, this is the input transistor. So of course, this is the single-ended version, so you cannot draw symmetry, right? So if you were to draw the differential half circuit for the fully differential OTA, what will you get? You will have a cascode, PMOS cascode and a NMOS cascode, right? Now, what happens is, let's say this is M1, M3, M5, and M7, right? So what happens is that M1 and M7 noise appears at output, whereas M5 and M3, the noise circulates within itself and does not appear at the output, right? Even in the case of a cascode, we saw that. Because why is that the case? Let me just refresh your memory. You have this noise current source. This noise current, when it sees here, it sees 1 over Gm up. When it sees down, it sees R naught. So therefore, it will obviously go into the transistor again. So same thing for this transistor, right? The noise that is coming here, it will see 1 over Gm here and R naught here, and therefore it will basically circulate within itself, right? So that is why M3 and M5 will not contribute, and therefore we can say that M3, M4, M5, M6 noise does not appear at the output, right? And noise of M1, M2, M7, M8 noise appears at the output. Okay, and so you can talk about, you can derive it. I'll just write the final expression. I think you guys, we have already looked at the noise performance, so you can easily derive this. It becomes 8 kT gamma 1 over Gm1 plus Gm7 by Gm1 squared plus 2 times Kn divided by WL of 1 Cox F 1 comma 2 plus 2 times Kp W over L of 7 and 8 Cox F multiplied by Gm7 squared divided by Gm1 squared. So I want you to derive this and cross check whether this is indeed the case. All right. Okay. So now we will look at one more aspect of op amps in general, which is basically slew rate. Now I'm sure that all of you have heard about slew rate. What is slew rate of an op amp? op amp In general, let's say you take any op-amp based analog circuit, what is slew rate?
Sir, the rate at which the transistor can change its value, like can go from high state to low state.
The maximum slope.
Okay. So basically what happens is, let's say you take an op-amp, right? Let's say you put it in unity gain feedback, right? And let's say you give a sharp transistor. Let's say you give a step input. Let's say you give a large step input. Okay. So before we go into the large step input, let us say you just give a smaller step input. All right. Now, this op-amp, as we have seen so far, all the op-amps that we have designed, the 5-transistor op-amp or the telescopic cascode op-amp, we know that they are all single pole systems. Of course, they do have other poles, but all the other non-dominant poles are all at a higher frequency, right, which is beyond the UGF. So for all practical purposes, the op-amps that we have seen so far are all single pole systems, right? So you have A0 divided by 1 by S plus omega P. This is the open loop gain of your op-amp. This is the transfer function or open loop transfer function of your op-amp, right? Now let us say you put it in unity gain feedback. How will this V in to V out transfer function look like? V by this thing can be written as A of S divided by 1 plus beta times A of S. Here beta is 1, unity gain feedback. So it becomes A of S divided by 1 plus A of S. So if you do this, what do you get? So A naught divided by 1 plus S by omega P divided by 1 plus A naught divided by 1 plus S by omega P. You bring that to the denominator. You basically get A naught divided by 1 plus S by omega P plus A naught. Okay. So approximately, basically it becomes A naught divided by A naught plus S by omega P, or in other words, it can also be written as 1 by 1 plus S by omega P times A naught. Now, what is omega P times A naught?
UGF.
It is the UGF, right? So A naught is the open loop gain, omega P is the 3 dB bandwidth of the open loop op-amp. This is nothing but the UGF, let's call it omega U. It's the UGF of the op-amp, right? So therefore, H of S can be written as 1 by 1 plus S by omega U. Now, this is again a single pole system, obviously. Now, if you give us step input to a single pole system like this, what will be its output? How will the output be? Let's say I am having this, anyway, I've drawn the diagram here. Right? Now, what would you, this is a single pole system, right? This whole transfer function from here to here is 1 by 1 plus S by omega U. What will be the output? Time domain, just tell me graphically, I mean, how it will look like.
Curve, like it will not be that much straight.
So it will be ramp like
Okay, go back to
ramp
your
signal.
Laplace transforms and
No, sir,
steps.
because sir, it won't allow high frequencies component because of limited bandwidth.
You're right. So it is definitely not going to go up like this. This is not going to happen. But is it going to go up as ramp or is it going to go up as something else?
Something
Curve.
else, sir, not exactly ramp.
Okay, what is that something else? So if you
So there will be
recall
some
your
slopes,
Laplace
sir, at the
transforms.
edges.
Okay, so this is a first order system. Let me give you one more one example, right? Let's say I have an RC system. This is also a first order single pole system, right? If I give an step input to this, how will the output be?
Exponential, like 1 minus exponential.
1 minus exponential, right? 1 minus e power minus t by tau. Correct. What is this system?
Similar. One
This is
minute.
also a first order system. So this one, if you say, this will be what? 1 by SC divided by R plus 1 by SC. So this will become 1 divided by 1 plus S times RC, where omega P is nothing but 1 by RC. Right? So this can be written as 1 by 1 plus 1 S by omega P. This is 1 by 1 plus S by omega U. Right? So if you give a step input to this, this will have the output will basically be a exponentially rising output. Okay, so this can be, so if you give a unit step, or let's say this is some 0 to some value k, right? The output will basically be, this will go from 0 to this value k, but this can be written as k times 1 minus e power minus t by tau. What is the tau here? Here the tau is
Omega.
nothing but 1 by omega u. Okay. So this is an important thing that you must understand. All right. So an op amp by itself is a single pole system. So what you would see in a RC, typical RC circuit, the same kind of behavior you will see in a op amp which is put in, let's say, unity gain feedback or even any other feedback. Only thing is, the instead of having, if you, let's say you have a inverting amplifier with a certain resistive ratio, only thing that will change is this omega u. Instead of omega u, you will have the beta factor and the this thing coming into the picture. All right. So equivalently, you can say that your unity gain frequency is this one. So when you talk about settling time of an op amp, right, as long as it is strictly a single pole system, you talk about the time constant of this system, and the time constant of this system is 1 over nothing but 1 over omega u, right? And omega u is the unity gain frequency. So one of the takeaways from here is, higher your unity gain frequency, the faster the settling. Agreed? So higher UGF. So what is your UGF? This is nothing but GM by 2 pi CL or GM by CL, because you're talking about omega u, right? So how will you increase the unity gain frequency of your op amp?
Increase GM.
Increase GM. So which, the straightforward way to increase GM is basically to increase current. Okay. So typically you'll have larger bandwidth op amps with higher power consumption. Okay. So you have a power bandwidth trade-off. All right. And therefore, if you have a higher bandwidth op amp, it will quickly settle. The tau is small, and therefore you'll have a fast exponential rise. If you have a lower unity gain frequency, it will have a slower exponential rise. Now here, in this example, I told you that the step is not very large. Correct. So that is where, all the transistors are still in saturation, right? If you look at this op amp, either this op amp or the 5 transistor op amp that we looked at, or even for that matter, the other op amp topologies that we will be looking at in the subsequent classes, right? What happens is, we assume that all the transistors are still in saturation. Let us say you are giving an input step like this, let's say some 100 millivolt step, okay, delta equal to 100 millivolt, something like this. Basically, the output will go and settle like this. All right. Now, let us say I'm going to give a large input. Okay. Large input step. Let's say for this op amp, okay, I'm going to give a let's say 0.5 volt to, let us say, 1.7 volt or 1.5. Let's say 0.5 volt to 1.2 volt step. It's a large step. Okay. Now what will happen? If you look at this op amp, first of all, your output initially is at a lower voltage. So let us say instead of even 0.2, let me just say 0.2 2 to 1.2. Now, when this step is going to happen, if you look at the, let me quickly, I'll just explain with the fully differential case. I mean, the same kind of applies to the single-ended case as well. Right? So here your output is shorted like this, right? Now what will happen? I mean, it need not be always shorted also. Let us say you have some differential. So this is one thing that can happen. Or if you have a fully differential system, right? This also can happen. This can go in one direction. This can go to another direction. Okay. It's a fully differential op-amp. It need not even be in feedback. All right. So you have some CL on both sides. I will just solve for this case, and then, I mean, a very similar thing will work for all the other cases. So let us say I am having a large step here and correspondingly a large downward step here. Okay. Now what will happen to M1 and M2? This larger voltage transitions are going to push the transistors out of their saturation region. In fact, if it's large enough, M1 will be fully on and M2 will completely turn off. Okay, M2 turns off. Now, if M2 turns off, what happens? The entire current I tail is going to flow like this. Okay. So since there is M2 has turned off, this current is now 0. This current is now I tail. But what is how is your top side? Your top side is a current source, correct? So if it is a current source, how much current is actually flowing through both of them?
I tail by 2.
I tail divided by 2. This is also I tail divided by 2. Because your top side is not affected, right? Your top side transistors are in saturation. They are current sources and they are pumping this amount of current, which is I tail by 2 and I tail by 2 on both sides. Now we know that there is no current which is flowing into this side. So by KCL, how much is the current that is flowing into the capacitor on one side?
I tail by 2.
It will be I tail by 2 because this current will have to flow into this transistor, this one. So this is your Vout plus. Now let us look at this section. Now what is flowing here is I tail, and what is flowing from the top is I tail by 2, and therefore the current will have to flow like this from the capacitor, and its value will be I tail divided by 2. So from the current source you have I tail by 2, and from the capacitor you have half of I tail, such that the total current flowing through will be I tail here, right? So therefore, what is going to happen here is when you have a large step, now the same thing can be worked out for a single-ended op-amp with unity gain feedback, or all the other all the other kind of scenarios that can be thought of. What will happen is that one side goes completely out and the other side is going to happen. So what will happen to Vout P? Vout P can be thought of as a current source of I tail divided by 2 flowing into this capacitor CL. And this is your Vout P. Now, how is the Vout M side? This is your Vout M. How is your Vout M side? You can think of Vout M as being something like this. You have this capacitor CL and you are pumping out I tail by 2, and this is your Vout M. Now, can you tell me what will be Vout P of T? How can you write this expression for this case? So what happens when you pump current into a voltage? So the voltage across Vout P is nothing but voltage across the capacitor. And what is voltage across the capacitor? It is going to 1 over C integral of I of t dt plus, let's say, Vc of 0. let us just say that Vc of 0 is not in the, I mean, let's say there is, let's just say V out P of 0. Now, whatever was V out P of 0 will basically be there, V out P of 0. That is before the, transition happened, or 0 minus, if you would like to call it, right? Now, what is I of t? I of t is a constant, which is I tail by 2. So you basically have I tail by 2 in the denominator multiplied by t. Now, what is this function? I mean, what is the shape of this Renser function? What is the shape of this signal?
Sir, I tell by 2.
Ramp, sir.
Yeah, it is a ramp. Yeah, I tail by 2. That's why I put the 2 on the numerator. Right. So this is nothing but a ramp. Correct. So when you pump current into a capacitor, when you pump a constant current into a capacitor, it is going to behave like a ramp. Similarly, how is your V out M of t going to look like? Same thing, integral I 1 by C integral I of t dt plus V out M of 0 minus, right? What is this one? Here also you are having I tail by 2, but in the negative direction. So this will be minus 2 by C times I tail multiplied by t plus V out M of 0 minus. So this is again a ramp, right? So what will happen is that, let us say you are giving a large V in differential. Let's say if you're giving a large step here, right? The V out t, what is going to happen is that from here, I mean, whatever was the value earlier, it is going to have a ramp now. Going to start ramping up, and the slope of this ramp is 2 by I tail times C. Correct. Let's say this is V out P of 0 minus. Now what happens to your V out M? V out M, it starts with, let's say, V out M of 0 minus, whatever was the value before this. And from that point, it is going to ramp down. And this slope is minus 2 by I tail times C. Now, as this voltage V out P and V out M are beginning to, rise up, right? Now, slowly what's going to happen, see, this was somewhere here. Now it is going to go up. As this voltage goes up, what is going to happen? I mean, especially if it is, let's say, a unity gain feedback kind of thing, right? So what will happen is, of course, if it is an open loop kind of thing like this will basically go down, and this will basically go up, right? But if you put things in feedback, right? So basically you have this is basically going to be the ramp, right? Now, let me take the case of unity gain feedback case. Let's say you give a step. Now V out, there is only one V out in this case. It starts ramping up. Now what happens in the case of a unity gain feedback? Let us look at this circuit. Now, let us say you had given a large step, right, at the input. Now this voltage initially went completely off, like it only the left hand side was pumping current, right? And the entire I tail was coming like this. Now as this side also starts increasing, M2 comes back into saturation. Now when M2 and M4 come back into saturation, what will happen? Here it will start, I mean, initially it will be a ramp, and then it will start you following the exponential side. So this is exponential, this is ramp. Okay. Now this ramping is what is called as slewing. Okay. So this activity is what is called as slewing, op-amp slewing. That is, now it no longer follows your first order system. Now you are literally starving it for current, right? It now, instead of becoming a first order system, it now becomes a system where, it is a constant current source pumping into a capacitor. So instead of having exponential rise, you're having ramp rise, right? So basically, if it was fine, it should have come like this, right? And this should have had this exponential kind of behavior. But because you're kind of running out of steam in your op amp will slowly ramp up for large input transitions. Okay, this is what is called as op amp slewing, and the slew rate is basically the slope of the slewing, right? The rate at which it can go. And what is the slew rate of this case? Can you tell me? It is nothing but the slope of this slewing thing. What is the slope here? 2 by I tail C. Or rather, so here you have voltage by this thing, and
Sir, I think
It is
sir, there is
ITL by
some
okay.
ITL.
Sorry, I think I tail. Yeah, it is I tail by 2 times C. It is I tail by 2 times C. Okay, so the slew rate is nothing but I tail by 2 times C. All right. Now, typically it is in the order of voltage per second. Sometimes it can be volt per microsecond, volt per nanosecond, something like this. If you look at op amp data sheets, you will see that for a given capacitance value.
Hello, sir. Sir, you're not audible.
Yeah, sorry guys, I got disconnected. I hope you can hear me now.
Yes, sir.
Right, okay. Yeah, let me just, yeah. So basically this is your slew rate of your op amp, all right? And same way, I think I went wrong somewhere here. Okay, yeah, this has to be in, I tail by 2 times C. This is also I tail by 2 times C. Yeah. All right. Now here, what we are, so this is how your op amp will slew. Now, just before I conclude, I want to talk about slewing even in a 5 transistor OTA. So here you can see that if there is this,
Sir, can you say that voltage per microsecond? You're saying something.
okay, yeah, it can be expressed in voltage per microsecond and so on. So for example, if you say it is 1 volt per microsecond, the slew rate is actually 10 to the power of 6 volt per second, right? So something like that. So usually you will see this kind of units being used in op amp datasheet. So I would really encourage you guys to pick up any op amp datasheet. In fact, you can go through TI's website or Analog Devices website, and you can look at some of the low voltage op amps, you will see that, you know, all these parameters, CMOS op amps will be there. Of course, bipolar op amps will also be there, but all these things will come into the picture. Basically, it will be like that. Right? So same way you will have for. So here also, if let's say you're putting things in unity gain feedback, this will be your V in, this will be your output, right? So if you're giving a large step, what will happen is all the current initially will flow through the left hand side. So it will basically, it will basically go like this, and then, you know, it will take up the exponential thing. All right. So here also you can define what is the slew rate of the op amp. And in this particular case, what will happen is the entire, so let us say M2 shuts off, all right. Let's say if M2 shuts off, M2, entire I tail flows here, right? And therefore the entire I tail will flow into the capacitor here. And therefore here the slew rate now becomes I tail by C. All right. So this is the case for single-ended 5-transistor OTA. All right. So in this particular case, okay. So here even for the telescopic cascode, the slew rate of each arm of your op amp is ISS or I tail by 2 times C. You can also talk about the differential slew rate. The differential slew rate, of course, will be I tail divided by C, right? So because this is going up by I tail by 2C, this is going down by I tail by 2C, this differential slew rate is I tail by 2C. Okay, so with this, I conclude our discussion on telescopic cascodes. Now, in Razavi's book, there is a nice design example with telescopic cascodes. I want you to go through that, okay? And also in chapter 11, if I'm not mistaken, you have a chapter on design, how to design. So now we are looking at analysis. What I want to do is I want to cover a couple of more topologies. We'll look at folded cascodes and rail-to-rail op amps in the next couple of classes. And once we are done with it, I will go through design. We will look at design aspects and so on. In the meantime, I would like you to go through the design exercises or the design examples in Razavi's book. There is also a separate chapter devoted to design. So please go through that and try to understand. Okay. All right. So with this, I'll conclude today's class. Any doubts or questions?
No, sir.
All right. Okay. So thanks, everyone. Have a nice day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.